Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a new update hot off the presses from ESPN. The overall college football playoff chances for 2022. We're going to look at this Instagram post, and then I'm going to switch over, and we're going to look actually on ESPN FPI, and I'm going to show you guys why there's a major flaw in the way they do these rankings, or these percentages, whatever it is. But guys, you can look, Ohio State, the number one overall team. This is chance to reach the college football playoff based off of their current roster, based off of their current 2022 schedule. Ohio State right around 83% chance to reach the playoff. You've got Alabama right around 80%. Ohio State and Alabama both returning unbelievable quarterbacks. Not surprising. I am surprised by Georgia at 75% chance. Me personally, I think Georgia is missing the playoff. I know they're in the SEC East, but I think they lose one game during the regular season, and then they lose to Alabama. That would give them 2 losses and effectively knock them out of the playoff. But they've got them at 7. Remember, Georgia loses a ton of defense. I know they're extremely talented, but with Stetson Bennett, I'm just not buying them. Clemson at 57%. That's based off of past history, and Clemson is going to have an absurdly good defense. Clemson's defensive line, along with their linebackers, is going to be ridiculous. The quarterback is the major issue. DJ Uiagalelei. Do they pivot? Do they go with the true freshman? They signed a true freshman quarterback, 5-star, who was the number one quarterback in the 2022 class. Maybe it's a Trevor Lawrence situation. You've got Notre Dame. As far as I'm concerned, guys, Notre Dame has a 0% chance to make the playoff. I don't know if people know, they have a horribly, horribly tough schedule. They're at Ohio State. They face Clemson at home, and then they're at USC at the end of the regular season. And another reason why this thing is so flawed, I don't know if the algorithm doesn't take into account Caleb Williams transferring to USC. They said that it did take that stuff into account, but they have USC so far down. We're going to talk about it when we get there. But Texas, 18% chance. Listen, it's tough with Texas. I think Texas is possibly, their goal should be a New Year's 6 game. You're going to lose to Alabama week 2. Everyone knows it. But if you're Texas, you don't have to beat Alabama. Just beat Oklahoma. Just beat Oklahoma. Get yourself to the Sugar Bowl or something. Maybe the Sugar Bowl is one of the playoff games this year. But just get yourself to a New Year's 6 bowl if you're Texas. Don't focus on the playoff. You do have 3 absurdly talented players. Quinn Ewers, we'll see his debut. Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy. And then a defense that is talented because we know Texas always recruits very well. You've got Michigan right around 18% chance. I don't see it with Michigan. It'll be interesting with J.J. McCarthy. They've got an extremely easy non-conference schedule, and then they get a tough road game versus Iowa. It'll be interesting to see if that Michigan-Iowa game is a night game. That would be tough for Michigan, but I see Michigan as a 3-loss team. Maybe due to the easy non-conference, they only lose 2 games. Maybe. Oklahoma at around 11.5%. I think that's good value, but I don't see it with Oklahoma. It's like, what are we predicting here? Oklahoma is literally going from one extreme to another. You're going from an offensive-minded, young head coach who really doesn't care about defense, let's be honest, to a completely old-school defensive-minded coach. How am I supposed to predict how Oklahoma's going to do? You're literally doing a 180. I mean, listen, I like Dylan Gabriel. I think their offense will be fine. They've got a really good young receiver. But it just comes down to, I'm not sure. I think they probably lose to Texas this year in that rivalry. Miami at 9% chance, Tyler Van Dyke. Miami is such a dark horse. They really are. They're such a dark horse playoff team. You've got, the only thing I worry about, the lack of skill position players overall for Miami. I am a little bit surprised they didn't make more of a run at Jordan Addison. Because I guess I do get why, because Jordan Addison's a one and done, meaning he only has 1 year left. and then he goes to the NFL. It's not like he's going to be on Miami for 2 or 3 years. Jordan Addison's going to USC for 1 year and then going to the NFL, and they still paid him $3 million. But I don't know, man. Miami has some 3 really talented defensive players, including Leonard Taylor, who was like the number 3 overall player in his class going into his sophomore season. They've got a few 5-stars. James Williams, another one, really talented players. Utah at 6.3. I would probably bump Utah's chances up to around maybe 15% chance. They've got that huge game. The thing that you have to know about Utah, huge game, the game of the year in the Pac-12, home game versus versus USC, middle of the season. They get USC at home. They return a bunch. They've got Cam Rising back. They've got Thomas, the running back, who had like 21 touchdowns back. That'll be interesting. And then looking at some dark horses, Oklahoma State, I don't see it at all. I think Oklahoma State loses 5 games this year. Jim Knowles is gone. I think last year was a little bit of a fluke. And the Big 12, to me, the Big 12 is going to cannibalize itself in the middle. Like TCU should be decent. Oklahoma State should be decent. Maybe Texas Tech is a 5 or a 6 win team. They normally are. So I think there's going to be a lot of, and then you've got Oklahoma and Texas at the top. Kansas State also is not bad. So that's the Big 12 has some teams, and I think Oklahoma State's going to end up losing a few games. People think they're going to have another really good season. I don't see it personally. LSU, no chance, just 0 in the SEC West with Brian Kelly. Jane Daniels, it was a good transfer get. It'll be fun to watch him for LSU. He's not a bad quarterback, but it's not happening. Michigan State, it's not happening, not in the Big Ten. Auburn, I would have Auburn at like a negative 100% chance. I have no clue why they're on this list. Penn State, 2%. It's not happening, but I understand, 2%, there's no problems with that. A&M, I might bump A&M up to 5%, but I agree, very little chance. A&M signed the greatest recruiting class in history last year, but they're all true freshmen. And they're starting an inexperienced quarterback. It's going to take time. Pittsburgh, no chance. They lost Jordan Addison. I don't see it. I would hope, if I was a Pittsburgh fan, I'd hope for 9 wins. North Carolina, it's not happening. And then Oregon with Bo Nix, of course, that opening game against Georgia, which is a neutral site game in Atlanta, Georgia. Right. So Oregon in the Pac-12, I think Utah is clearly head and shoulders above them. USC as well. So, it is what it is. Bo Nix is not a bad quarterback, especially for a college quarterback in the Pac-12. He can have success. They can win 10 games. Oregon does have a very favorable schedule. Wait, was it Oregon or... I think it was Oregon that had the very favorable schedule in the Pac-12. They do have a very easy schedule. Guys, I flipped the camera around, and these are the official FPI updated rankings. This is the major... There's a few just humongous issues with this that's going to corrupt the overall system when these games actually happen, and I'll explain what I mean. Number 1, when they released ESPN released their initial FPI rankings back in like March, and they had Auburn at 10th overall, and I was like, what are we doing? Well, they've updated it, and now they have Auburn all the way down at number 11. They moved them down 1 spot. Auburn should not be inside the top 25. The problem, if you have Auburn, if you're starting Auburn at number 11th in the country, and teams beat Auburn, those teams will be rewarded, so-called rewarded, for beating the so-called number 11 team in the country. You cannot have a team that overrated in your metric rankings, because let's say Penn State beats Auburn because they play a non-conference game and the game is in Auburn, so it's telling the computer Penn State is beating the number 11 team in the country. Auburn is not the number 11 team in the country. It's going to F up your entire rankings throughout the entire year, and this is why people say there's SEC bias within ESPN. And listen, I like the FPI. I always reference it. I think it's great. I love percent chances. I love all that stuff. you can't have Auburn at number 11. I like, no recruiting rankings say they're number 11. They've got a new quarterback. I just do not understand it. LSU at number 10 is a major. I mean, I would put LSU maybe, if you want to say they're talented, at like number 23, if we want to be fair. There's no way they should be starting as the number 10 team in the nation. Like, Alabama number 1, that's fine. Ohio State 2, that's fine. Georgia, that's fine. Clemson at 4, I understand they recruit really well. Notre Dame and Michigan, no issues. Texas, it's a little high, let's be honest. I know Texas has talent, but come on. Number 7, maybe I would throw Texas in there at 13 or 14. Oklahoma at 8, I understand it. Miami at 9, that's fine. There's issues with these two teams. A&M at 12, I'd probably put them at like 14. Utah, I would move up. Oklahoma State, I would move down. Michigan State is fine at 15. Penn State, I would move up a little bit. Ole Miss is fine at 17. Kentucky is fine. They've got a very interesting quarterback. North Carolina, I think, is a little overrated, although I do love Josh Downs. Pitt is really overrated. But guys, the one thing I wanted to show you, there's Tennessee. Yeah, no, I mean, Mississippi State is not a top 25 team. This is the other issue. This is why they say there's SEC, and then they've got KJ Jefferson returns. But these are just average teams, man. I mean, Wisconsin seems to be underrated. How is Wisconsin lower than Pitt? How is Florida State at 33? Wake Forest has Sam Hartman. Okay, I understand that. Maryland is pretty high. But guys, so the major flaw, I don't know what happened to their system. They have USC at 35. And I know people will say, well, it's analytically based. But they said that they track and they can judge transfers. So if you're adding one of the top receivers in the nation, Jordan Addison, one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, Caleb Williams, that virtually automatically should at least make you a top 25 team analytically. But USC is below UCF and Florida State and Nebraska and Iowa State and Wake Forest? What sense does that make? This is the major problem. And now the Pac-12 gets devalued so much. You have USC ranked 25 spots below LSU and 24 spots below Auburn. So this thing isn't even close to being right. And I like the FPI. I like the idea behind it. But if these are the starting points for these teams, it's going to F up your season because you're going to reward teams. This is an algorithm, guys. It's not, an opinion. So if Auburn loses to someone, the team that beats Auburn, according to this analytical formula, gets rewarded for beating the number 11 team. The problem is you should not have Auburn as the number 11 team. So I don't know what is wrong. I don't know what is causing their analytics to spit out this 13.6 ranking for Auburn, which ranks them 11th. But they need to either look into their overall model structure of how they rank these teams analytically, or just, I don't know what you do, but there are some major problems with these rankings. But I will tell you guys, one thing I always like to do. Oh, there's BYU at 46. I'll just go down and see. Virginia seems way too low. Virginia, to me, is a top 25 team with Brennan Armstrong. They've got great receivers as well. Army has a really good pass rusher. I think his name is Andre Carter II, maybe. But I've seen him in mock drafts. Coastal Carolina, Grayson McCall. Grayson McCall set the record for being the most efficient quarterback. There's that horrible logo. Oh my God, that's a terrible logo. I'm trying to see where is our... Okay, so New Mexico is actually the worst team in college football. Let's see if we can find... Okay, there's Arkansas State. Ohio State faces Arkansas State week 2. Where's Toledo? I'm trying to find Toledo. Wait a minute. Let's find Toledo. There's Toledo. So Toledo... Not bad. They're 70th. Wow, they're actually in front of Northwestern and Colorado. Arizona. So who is the worst Power 5 team? Arizona? Duke? Is Duke? No. Vanderbilt. Yeah, so Vanderbilt, it looks like Vanderbilt, unfortunately, is the worst Power 5 team. And there is James Madison, for you guys who don't know. There's 131. I don't know how is it an odd number? There's 131 of these teams. Apparently, James Madison is now, they're fully Division I, and they're going to be playing a Division I schedule. So it'll be interesting to see them there. But, guys, they're underrating Rutgers as well. Yeah, I would put Rutgers over Northwestern 100%. Definitely Rutgers over Indiana. But it'll be interesting to see this season, and there are some big issues with these rankings, so hopefully they're able to iron them out. If I was an ESPN data scientist, I would look and I'd be like, we need to recalibrate the system in some sort of way. The issue is, if you have all these SEC teams overrated at the start of the season, it's going to F up the regular season, even if those teams lose, because you're going to be rewarding the teams that beat those teams, which are SEC teams, because SEC teams face SEC teams, right? It's very confusing, but this is how it happens. This is why people claim there's SEC bias, because when Auburn loses to Arkansas, it's not a big win for Arkansas, but according to these metrics it is, because they think Auburn's the number 11 team in the country. That's the issue, guys. Some interesting stuff here. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.